Welcome to Gracefully Graying. I am your host, Attorney Henry Gornbein. Today on Gracefully Graying, I am very pleased to welcome as our guest Jamie Oldham, who is a registered nurse and the Director of Care Coordination Services with the law firm of Schluter Hughes, as she leads us in a discussion regarding aging in place and care coordination. Jamie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Henry.
It's a pleasure. First of all, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about your background and who you are? And, you're kind of unique. I mean, I've never dealt with a law firm where there was an RN as part of the team. So this is unique.
Well, thanks. So I've been a registered nurse for over 20 years, and I spent a lot of time actually in the beginning stages of life in OB and women's health care. And I've been in the hospital setting, in the doctor's office setting, and I've always really enjoyed community health, honestly, and keeping people out of the hospital. so it works very well now that I'm on the geriatric side of nursing. And yeah, like you mentioned, I work for a law firm, which is a little ironic. It's not typically where you see nurses, but it's been a really exciting way to pair geriatric care and the legal side. So as a care manager, our goal is to support the patient advocate in their role by advocating for the senior and what the senior's desires are, and focusing on quality of life and focusing on health and wellness outside of the hospital. But then if there are hospitalizations, if there are changes in health and decline, families don't feel so isolated, and they can kind of tag me in, per se, to help with the care of their senior.
That's amazing. I think it's unique, and I think it's very creative. Let's talk about housing and homes. I mean, a lot of people want to age in place. And what steps can you take to retrofit your home for aging in place?
So I would say, and I think statistically right now, it's about 75% of seniors want to be able to stay in their homes as long as possible, versus opposed to, choosing to move into like a senior community. So it seems like that should just be easy, right? Like, you've lived here for 30 years, you know everything about this home. But if you think about, obviously, there's a lot of upkeep and work around the home. So being able to outsource those things. But then when we think about inside the house and the safety of the senior living there, as a nurse, safety is always kind of the first thing on my mind. And knowing that statistically 1 in 4 individuals over the age of 65 have a fall every single year. A lot of those falls actually happen in the home. And the bathroom is one of the first places that falls happen. Why? Because we have water and it can be slippery, but also the stairs. So when we're thinking about how we can retrofit our home and how we can make our home safe to be able to spend the rest of our life here, we have to think about a few things. But quickly, the bathroom, getting rid of the pretty rugs. Like, we want to make surfaces non-slip. And then if the rug doesn't have the backing on it, then it's a slippery thing itself. Adding grab bars so that you can hold on to a bar as you step into the shower or step out of the shower. Because if you've ever slipped and you grab for a towel bar, they're going to come out of the wall real quick. So actually having a company come in and actually add grab bars before you have the slip and fall in the bathroom is obviously the best way to prevent that. When we think about stairs, whether they're into the garage or into the basement, again, those grab bars that are along your stairs need to be secured to the wall. If they're wobbly, we want to get them fixed. Don't store things on the stairs. So looking at all your pathways and trying to clean up your pathways, free the spaces for larger openings, into doorways or up and down stairs. Adding things like a chairlift. If mobility is difficult at all, adding a chairlift to a stairwell. Even if you don't need to sit on that on that chairlift to go up and down the stairs, you could set your laundry basket on that stair lift to go up and down the stairs. So again, doing proactive things before there's a fall is obviously going to give us the best quality of life and the ability to stay in our home. The other thing too is just as you're navigating around your home, when we're thinking about pathways, think about if I had my knee replaced or my hip replaced, could I fit a wheelchair through this doorway or down this hallway or around where the dog food is and the dog bowls and stuff that's through the home? We want to make sure we have large enough pathways to be able to navigate if our health throws us a curveball.
What about, I'm thinking also, shouldn't there be grab bars near the toilet and also in the shower area or bathtub area as well?
Yes. So it's really nice to have a company that does nothing but grab bars come out. Like here in Michigan, Disability Made Easy is a great one. And they'll come out and they'll actually do a home assessment about where they would typically place grab bars and for what purpose. So you're holding onto a bar to get in and out of the shower. There's a bar inside the shower, usually a seat, whether it's built in or whether it's an actual seat that you add, because again, if you had an unexpected joint surgery, you're going to need to sit for your shower. Because obviously we're talking about anyone that's 65 versus 85. Very different mobility levels, but we all have changes in our body as we're getting older. It takes longer when we go from a seated position to a standing position. It now takes longer for our heart to pump our blood all the way up to our brain. So because of that, we have the possibility of getting dizzy. You have the possibility of, dizziness can lead to falls real quickly. Different medications you add can then alter the way your body goes from that, that blood pressure again to get up to your brain. So that's why I'm encouraging, even if we're only 65 and we're thinking, oh, that stuff's for when I'm older. Things change. Our bodies are changing, medications change, and then there's always those potential surprising surgeries that can come along too, and the rehabilitation at home.
That's for sure. Jamie, smart technology is everywhere, and I'm kind of a dinosaur in many respects when it comes to technology. I can turn on a computer. I use computers all the time. I have smartphones, but how can we integrate smart technology into our home as we are aging in place?
Henry, I don't think you can call yourself a dinosaur when you have a podcast and a website. Oh gosh. But hey, there's a lot of great smart technology, and it is scary for a lot of people to integrate, but there's a lot of great things that you can do in the home. For example, automating lighting. Poor lighting can lead to trips and falls. So having smart plugs or even just timers, that doesn't have to be smart, right? It could just be a timer in which the lights come on in these specific rooms at certain times. And then if you're gone too, those lights are still coming on, which makes it obviously look like somebody's home. Same thing with locks on your doors. And I actually love this one because you know how you always get in bed and then you're thinking, oh, did I lock the front door? And then you have to get out of bed and go back around and do the circle. But automating smart locks that you could it would retrofit your lock on your house. And then you could use an app to say, I want this to always lock at 9 p.m. Or you can, lock it and unlock it from your phone, which is nice and simple, honestly. Some other devices too, like Ring doorbell cameras, are great for security, but they're also, if you're not home, or if you are home and I get an alert at 4 a.m. Well, it was a deer, thank goodness. But still, it's nice to just know that there's another set of eyes kind of watching around you. Now, if you are a family member that you're really concerned about somebody that's living alone, other smart things are like using like an Echo Show, for example, which you could automate some of those systems for them. The Echo Show kind of becomes a little bit of the hub in the house. But the Echo Show also is really nice because if you have it paired with somebody, so say I'm concerned about my mom, I can drop in on that Echo Show, meaning I can call it and it'll turn the video on. So if I haven't been able to get a hold of my mom who's living alone and I'm concerned, I can drop in on that Echo Show. Other smart technology, which is always really good to add in is fall detection. So like an Apple Watch. Maybe you're like, I'm not wearing one of those stupid pendants to call for help. I don't need that. Okay, well then like having an Apple Watch, it has a fall detection that could notify 911 if it detects, this is not my area of expertise, I guess, to explain how it's detecting, but it could detect if there was a potential fall, and call 911. Or there's a lot of, if you look on the internet, there's a lot of different pieces of jewelry you can get now with fall detection integrated in it that could call for help. That is not what people think of as this big dumb pendant around their neck. It doesn't have to be like that. It could be a watch or a bracelet or, a piece of jewelry instead.
Jamie, what about alarm systems for the home? I mean, don't they have, I think alarm companies, don't they have medical monitoring features as well now? I'm just curious.
Yeah, some of them do. You know what I think I just saw the other day is Ring, which has always just been the cameras, now actually has a full system, alert system as well. And if you have those little smart boxes in the home, like the Echo Show, you could yell to it, to call 911 or call for help if you had fallen. Nobody ever wants to be the person that has fallen down the stairs and probably has a hip fracture now at the bottom of those stairs and can't get help because they can't get up the stairs. So, whether it's a voice activated system in your home that is with a home alarm system, or, the Ring cameras, or having an Amazon Alexa or something in the house that you can yell to be able to, even if it says, call my son, whatever, however you can call out. And again, nobody wants to think about these things. I hope none of you fall down the stairs and are stuck at the bottom of the stairs. But the reality is sometimes crazy things like that happen, and you don't want to wait for a neighbor to break down your door to come find you.
Now, one thing I've learned also, that exercise and diet can be a way to counteract falling, especially if you're in fairly decent health. That
Yes.
just taking regular care of yourself through, regular exercise. And also I've learned that strength training, weight training can help counteract a lot of this as well as cardiovascular.
Yes. That's fantastic. Good job. You've been listening. You've been doing your homework. Yes, regular strength training, even just getting outside and walking every day. But that muscle training is what is good to help keep balance. So whether you go to, a class at the gym, or you're doing exercises at home, little things, even just like rocking up onto your toes and then up onto your heels and onto your toes. They're just little balance training things, and that you can do to keep your body limber, to be able to prevent the falls. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing too with exercise, while we're on that little topic, getting your heart rate up so that you're sweating. Because when your heart rate goes up, that sends a burst of blood flow up to the brain. That is one of the best things we can do for dementia, actually, and for dementia prevention, is getting more blood flow up to the brain. So get that heart rate up when you're doing your exercises.
Good advice, Jamie. Now, next, how do you build your professional family?
So I love the term professional family because not everybody has a blood family, right? Some people never had children, or maybe they've outlived all their family members. And so they are aging solo. Or maybe you have children, or you have family members, but the relationships aren't what you would really want them to be before you name one of those people in your documents. So everybody needs to have two very, very, very important documents. One is a power of attorney, and this person is who makes makes financial decisions for you if you are unable to make financial decisions. The other one is a healthcare power of attorney, or what I like to refer to as the patient advocate. And that person is going to make medical decisions for you if you cannot. So let's say you were in a car accident and you get to the hospital and you're unconscious. You can't consent to surgery, but the next person for you, your patient advocate, is who needs to be able to say yes or no to that surgery for you. So those two people in your life are very, very important. So if you don't have, let's say you don't have a daughter that you are able to name in those roles, or maybe you do have a daughter, but she's not going to be capable of making those decisions for you, those medical decisions for you. There you can actually hire a professional family. So a professional family is, again, we need to name somebody as power of attorney. We need to name someone as patient advocate. Sometimes people name their attorney or their financial advisor, or sometimes they name a friend. There's a handful of people that you can name in those documents. But if you are somebody that maybe has very complicated family dynamics and a blended family, it might make more sense to name a professional trustee or power of attorney for those financial decisions. So again, a professional family is always an option. Whether you name your brother as your patient advocate or whether you name an attorney as your patient advocate, it's nice when that person knows that they're named in your documents, but they don't have to do it alone. They could actually hire someone like me, who is a care manager, to come in and walk alongside of them. So that's my role, is supporting that patient advocate as they have to make these tough decisions. It's not always a simple decision like, oh my gosh, they were in a car accident. Do I consent to a surgery on their ankle or not? When we see cognitive impairment, when we see dementia, Parkinson's, these are diseases that individuals live with for many years. And at a lot of times in those years, they're not able to make decisions for themselves. And that patient advocate has to be making those decisions. So having someone on your team, like a professional family member, having a care manager coming alongside. So if I've named a professional such as my attorney to be my healthcare patient advocate because I don't have anybody else to name, they need to be able to know a lot of information about me. They need to know what my drug allergies are. They need to know what my end of life wishes are and what my beliefs are surrounding artificial nutrition and ventilation. If my heart stops, do I want CPR? So there's a lot of pressure on the patient advocate. There's a lot for them to know. So if you've named a professional, it's great to have a care manager walking right alongside them, because that's my role, is to become your walking, talking medical record, to be able to, answer in the emergency room whether or not you have metal in your body and you can go in for an MRI, for example.
Amy, how does one stay connected with support systems?
So none of us were put on this earth to do life alone. And so support systems are very important for aging because they keep our mind active. Okay, so your support system could come in a variety of ways. It could be your family. It could be, when your children and grandchildren come over. It could be your local senior center. It could be that group of individuals that you meet with regularly to play cards, or a neighborhood group that gets together and walks or plays pickleball. So all these different versions of support are very important because they help us feel connected to the world. But more importantly, they're stimulating our brain and keeping that blood flow to the brain, right? These are really important ways to starve off dementia and staying connected with our support systems. So we have a social support, but then we also need, a bit of a medical support too, as far as somebody that knows our information, somebody that knows that, I had a doctor's appointment last week, and there was a lot of discussions, or I've had a lot of changes in health. So these doctor's appointments that I'm going to are really important. Somebody that knows when you're supposed to be home and not supposed to be home, so they can kind of keep an eye on things for you. Or, the other, I always think too, that one of the really, a lot of us have this neighbor that really knows our routines. And then they notice when somebody new is coming around a lot. Nobody wants to be a victim of fraud, a victim of a bad actor coming into our life and preying on us because we are elderly. So again, having support systems, we're all watching out for each other. It's so important to have a circle, a support circle, somebody that has your back and really kind of knows what your routines are. And when things might not be safe, when you might not be safe.
You're raising some really excellent points. I mean, I think one of the major issues, especially for people who are aging, especially if they're aging in place, is the fact that often there's depression, there's loneliness, and people lose connections because people are dying off or people are getting suffering from illnesses. And so staying connected through all the ways you've mentioned are really critical, and those are really important points that you're raising. Jamie, how important is it to organize documents?
So those two really important documents that I mentioned earlier, that power of attorney and that healthcare patient advocate. Let's talk about those first. So that's on the legal side of the house. But those are really important, that the person that you named in those documents is aware that they are named and has a copy of those documents. So if I'm in a car accident and I have a broken ankle and I get to the hospital, and I know I'm probably not unconscious from a broken ankle, but if I can't make my decision to be able to go into surgery to have my ankle repaired, my patient advocate needs to make that decision. How does the hospital know that person is your patient advocate? They need to have the document. So if I sit down and do great planning with my estate plan attorney like I was supposed to, and I made these documents, but then I never distributed those documents, it's really hard for that person to be able to go prove to the hospital that they're your patient advocate and that they know that you would want this surgery done. Okay, so a lot of people make their documents, they put them in a binder. So who knows where that binder is? Somebody needs to know where that binder is located in your home and distribute copies of that power of attorney and patient advocate. Because then let's say you end up after a car accident, you have a big surgery, and now we're in a rehab facility and we're not going to be home for 6 to 8 weeks. That power of attorney might need to use that document to go to the bank to help move money so that we can be paying bills, or somebody can kind of step in your absence. So that's one side of life, of the paperwork and where it should be. The other piece too, and I know this can kind of sometimes get a little bit overwhelming, but as far as your medical information, somebody needs to know your medical information. That patient advocate needs to know your medical information. So I like to encourage people to kind of build an emergency binder. And this is what I do for all my clients, is I build them emergency information. So it has their basic health information. Sometimes you may see different fire departments will have what's called a file of life. That's a magnet for the fridge. And in that magnet, you can pull out a list of your important contacts. So who's named as your patient advocate, a list of drug allergies. If you're diabetic, because if the EMS shows up in your home and you're unconscious on the floor, it would be really important for them to know right away whether or not you're diabetic. And that could be why you're unresponsive, versus if you have a pacemaker. So having some type of emergency information right near the fridge in your home is very important when we're talking about organizing documents. Another piece that goes alongside of that is whether or not you want resuscitation. Okay, so if you want CPR, so everybody in the world is a full code, which means you want the hospital to do everything in their power to keep you alive, unless you have signed an order with your physician that says, I want to be a do not resuscitate. I have had a great life. My quality of life is no longer what it used to be. And it's not something that I want to throw everything at to maintain. So if my heart stops, I feel like this is my time. I don't want chest compressions. I don't want to be hooked up to a ventilator in the hospital. If that is something that is that's a personal decision, and if that is something that the individual is feeling, like I said, they discuss it with their primary care doctor, they sign an order. That order should hang on your fridge or somewhere in your home, because when EMS comes into your home, if you're unresponsive, they by law are going to try to resuscitate you. They're going to do CPR. So if an individual did not want CPR, they do not want to be revived, that order needs to be hung, that it needs to be communicated to EMS. There also is like bracelets and stuff you can order online, like a do not resuscitate bracelet that you can't order unless you actually submit to the website a copy of your do not resuscitate order. But still, they have to see the physical order. The EMS has, or the person doing CPR, if it's a medical professional, has to see the order to not do CPR if they find you unresponsive.
Jamie, when should one take these steps for comfort and security?
Now. There's a lot of ages out there, but I just really encourage you to think about these things, think about your own wishes, think about your own documents. Even if you're in your 40s and 50s, we don't expect to have a heart attack and be unresponsive on our floor, but it's possible, right? All things are possible. Car accidents happen every day and affect absolutely every age. So you could come home from a car accident in a wheelchair at any age, right? And need to be able to navigate your own home. So yeah, it's never too early to start some of these tips we've talked about today.
Jamie, what advice would you give to a family member?
So sometimes as adult children, we get overprotective. And I think a takeaway piece maybe that I encourage all adult children is that our parents are still allowed to make mistakes. They're allowed to make bad decisions, just like as middle-aged or younger people were allowed to make bad decisions too, right? So sometimes as a care manager, we'll get a lot of phone calls from concerned adult children about their parents. And if they are a capacitated individual, they don't have cognitive issues that has led to incapacity. Sometimes just telling family members, like they're allowed to make those bad decisions. But we can also always encourage and help. I always kind of think about 3 different pieces of safety when it comes to aging. One is fall safety, and we talked about that already. Another one is med safety. So that's a really easy way to step in as an adult child to help support your parents, is helping them organize a medication box and just understanding what medications they're on and how to appropriately take them, right? And maybe that means the adult child comes on a weekly or monthly basis to help organize the medications, or changes the medications to a delivery system where they come packaged. The last piece of safety is financial safety. And we kind of talked earlier about some bad actors. So again, sometimes that power of attorney steps in and takes over bill pay, maybe earlier than was expected. But that's a great way to also help somebody age in place and just in general, keep our seniors safe.
Jamie, we're out of time. This was wonderful. You've raised some wonderful points and a lot of wonderful advice for seniors as well as children and other family members. Jamie Oldham and Schluter Hughes, I want to thank you so much for being our guest on Gracefully Graying. I want to thank our viewers and, of course, our sponsors for making Gracefully Graying possible, and, of course, Bloomfield Cablevision. Thank you so much.